Well, it's a delight to be chatting with you, Chris. We've had an enormous year, and I'm very, very grateful that you've got some time to chat with me about our survey findings. And before I talk about our specific findings, I've got quite a few thank yous to deliver. And first and foremost is obviously to you and Eric and Viv and Anna for getting behind this and collaborating so well with REBAA and really assisting us with not just engineering the questions, but prompting every member to help us with the survey. We did get quite a few great responses, and you've got a membership now of just over 13,000 people. So, you know, our willingness to partner with PTA was a very easy decision because you've got such a diverse community right across Australia. And we're talking to investors, owner-occupiers, prospective buyers, young buyers, older buyers, sophisticated, beginner. We've got such a breadth of people, and it's been wonderful to know that we're able to cut into that rich vein of feedback and intel and put together these questions and get some answers that are answers that some of them are surprising and some of them aren't surprising at all. But what we have got is a really good barometer reading on how Australian purchasers feel about the impact of COVID. So big thank you to the crew, to every member who helped out, and especially to the management team.
No worries, Kate. And for me as well, from us as well, thank you to REBAA. Obviously, a very responsible organisation. We know, you know, what's happening in the industry. We're very pleased that, yes, as investors and property enthusiasts, to have a responsible organisation looking after the industry. And of course, we are talking about the annual REBAA PTA Barometer survey that we've done. It's the second time in a row we've done it. Very, very happy to be partnering with REBAA so that the results are shared with our group, but also REBAA can take them away and educate members and others that are not part of our group. Yeah, very happy. And of course, this year was all about, well, we thought it was about COVID. We did get pretty much the same numbers as last year. Would have liked more, but you know, big thank you to all of our members that spent 5 minutes or 3 minutes to put in the questions. Very, very happy of our diverse community and putting the effort. So yes, all right. So we have a look at the findings then? I've got them right in front of me. It's a snippet.
Yeah.
Right? So we're going to do a snippet and then share the report maybe a bit later, maybe in the new year.
Yeah, we'll be releasing a white paper in the new year, and obviously we'll be able to reach out to journalists and the media too with some of our findings. And really, as I said before, we couldn't have had this wealth of information behind us without such a large contingent. So I'm really excited to give the members a sneak preview and encourage them to reach out and grab the white paper when it does get released, and to reflect on what some of these findings might mean for purchasing property in 2022 as well.
All right, awesome. So let's not waste any more time. I know this time of the year people might got lots of things to do. So I've got 5 things. I think we'll talk about 5 things today.
Yeah.
And the first one is that Queensland is the most desirable property location. Was one of our first findings. So what are your thoughts about that?
Well, interestingly, we polled people about their attitudes to purchasing in areas and captured investors and owner-occupiers. And of course, no surprises, we've seen a lot of migration from one city to another. Unfortunately, Sydney and Melbourne have had quite a few people move north, and you know, it was a very difficult time for a lot of people, so that's not a surprise. But what we have seen is enormous investor interest in Queensland and Brisbane and other regions as well. And you know, the performance of the area has certainly attracted investor activity, but also we've got very, very tight vacancy rates. So rental properties are just walking out the door, and the rental yields are really strong. So unlike the southern cities, Queensland and Brisbane in particular definitely offer some really attractive points for investors. So yeah, not a shock to me at all.
Sure. So a couple of things for me. Last week I was in Ballina, in Byron Bay, so northern New South Wales. And everybody said Sydney money and maybe a little bit of Melbourne, but a lot of money is pouring into that area, so northern New South Wales. But I also know north of the border, it's the same kind of thing. I did ask the question, is people from Brisbane buying in northern New South Wales? And they said, no, it's all Sydney and Melbourne money. So obviously that confirms for me as well that a lot of money is moving from here north. But I wanted to ask you before we move on. So I don't, you operate in Victoria. I don't have any investments in Queensland either. I got New South Wales. So do you think I should be should I be looking at other areas, or is it all about Queensland? Is there
Wow.
opportunities elsewhere?
It's a good question. I think diversification is really important. And I don't like going into a particular state just because of diversification. I think you've got to look at the metrics and understand how you're engineering your property portfolio and what the next purchase looks like. I'm also always mindful of herd mentality. So, that's a natural human bias. And if you just follow what everyone else is doing because the vast majority are doing it, it doesn't always end well. So go into Queensland for all of the right reasons, but make sure you're selecting a good quality property. You've got a property manager in mind that you can talk to, because, one city doesn't guarantee you that you'll get a great property. There's so much more to it.
Yeah, Queensland's a big place as well. So very good advice.
Is.
All right, let's move on to the next. It's kind of a little bit related to what we talked about. The next finding was the majority of buyers feel they've been priced out of the local market. Do you think this is maybe the reason why people from Sydney or New South Wales or Victoria looking outside of where they live to invest?
Sadly, I do. I do. And I relay that to what's going on down here in Victoria. I only focus on Vic, so I can only see changes that are happening in my local area. But we've had places like Ballarat, Bendigo, Geelong just go crazy this year. And it hasn't only been people escaping lockdown, it's also been buyers chasing affordability. And I know that because I've been fielding the inquiries and assisting people. And we've seen enormous uptake in the Geelong region in particular. And I relate that to the same kind of trend that you saw in New South Wales when Newcastle and Wollongong were steaming ahead. And again, the Central Coast, a lot of people made the decision to go into those markets because they're really well-supported regions. They've got great lifestyle, good jobs, schools, hospitals, universities, and they're an affordable option compared to the capital city. And we've seen the data, we've seen the growth figures. It's been horrendous for a lot of people that were already borderline with their budget to find the right dwelling for them in their capital city. And I've watched people make that decision and vote with their feet. Do they want to buy in the fringe areas or the growth areas that take over an hour to get into town from? Or do you pack up and leave and target a blue chip suburb in a smaller city?
Yeah. So, and I think working from home has helped a lot as well, right? Because even if you work on a CBD, let's say Sydney, for example, you could be living 2 hours out and do the trip once a week. It's bearable. You could do that. And so,
yeah.
Good work. Maintain your current sort of employment in the CBD, where obviously a lot of the money in the big corporates or whatever other white collar jobs are. But have your lifestyle with something affordable, a couple of hours from Sydney, and I've seen a lot of people like that. Okay,
Yes.
great to hear. And I should say as well, I mean, I was just looking with took a drive out to Gregory Hills, Oran Park, which is outer rings of Sydney with my kids the other day, and all thinking of buying. And houses out there are like $1 million minimum, that kind of thing, almost new. So I guess there's no choice for the next generation coming through. You need million massive deposits to be able to get in. So I think the further out you go might be a necessity.
Yeah.
Okay. The next finding was interesting, was that buyers are undeterred by COVID-19. What do you think about that?
I think this is a really interesting one to consider, because my feeling about this is if we polled the broad audience out on the street, just took some polling outside of this group, we'd have a very different figure and very different response rate. And the reason I say that is we're dealing with people who really do have an ear to the ground in PTA. You've got some very active members who are well read, they're plenty of sophisticated investors, and so their attitudes and their knowledge of the property industry and the things that can impact a good property decision, they're probably more savvy than your average bear. So I think that we've got probably an overrepresentation of people that are relaxed about it within the PTA group as opposed to the general community, because a lot of people who aren't familiar with property and growth drivers and threats to capital growth, they would just run away from it right now, or hide away in the corner until they've got more confidence. So I think this particular question was interesting for us to glean just how knowledgeable your crew is, but certainly I don't feel that it's representative of greater audience.
So I've got a funny story to tell you about this, if I've got for 1 second.
Yeah.
So on Sunday, I went to do on a drive-through a COVID test because I mentioned to you before I'm going interstate. I'm going to Tasmania. So in a car full of people, my wife and my kids, and the lady that's waiting there to guide us as we're waiting, she said, I'm working very hard because I'm saving money. I go, oh, okay, that's good. She's doing all these shifts. She said, I want to buy a property. Oh, great. And where are you thinking of buying? She said, I'm thinking buying something with a granny flat, 3 or 4 hours from Sydney. And so this is the lady that's at the front of the queue of like 1,000 cars behind me. And she's telling me about that. Of course, I invited her to come to PTA, but it just shows you the person on the cold front that sees endless people, you know, with COVID is actually not deterred. She's working hard on the line to save some money. She's doing the night shift. So she's almost ready to buy an Armadale, she was saying, and she's got her plans ready. So
Wow.
other thing, in my view, I haven't heard anybody change the plans. Everybody's buying, and we can tell prices are going up. People are confident in the economy, and it's business as usual as they can do, if not more.
It's interesting you say that, because I gauge my client inquiry and people checking out my website. I have a look at Google Analytics and I can see what the web traffic looks like. And it correlates with my inquiry and how busy I am.
Yeah.
And we had a huge drop off in March 2020 when everyone got scared. And since then, it's been pretty busy. And it was interesting that Melbourne's lockdown in 2021 almost mirrored 2020's to the day. And we didn't have the same buyer sentiment out there this time around. People had seen what happened when the gates reopened.
Okay, awesome. Moving to the next one. It's, I think we touched on this a little bit, but work and conditions dictate property decisions. So I mentioned before, maybe working from home, lifestyle, all those kind of things. What are your views about that? Do you think working from home or lockdowns, things like that having an impact on what people are deciding where to buy and what to buy?
Very much so. For investors, not so much so, but for owner occupiers, almost 100%. So what this stat tells me is that a large proportion of respondents were speaking from an investment point of view, because if we were dealing with owner occupiers and no investors, it would have been an alarmingly higher figure. People have definitely made changes to their criteria for their homes because they're aware of lockdowns, but they're also aware of the need to be able to work from home seamlessly and work also with others in the household who are working from home, whether it's student children or, partners who are on calls. And I know as a buyer's advocate, my criteria for homes has changed completely. It's all about connectivity, study space, keeping people separate when they're working. It's been a dramatic change.
And that's pretty much, I have to say, what I'm seeing in Sydney as well, because I'm not sure if members know, but I'm running a property management agency in Sydney. So what I've seen in the last 2 years is a reversal of what tenants are looking for. So the bigger the property, the more desirable has become, and that wasn't always the case. Pre-COVID, 1-bedrooms were quite desirable for lifestyle, close to cafes and all of that. But then what I'm noticing is people from 1-bedrooms are moving to 2 bedrooms. They want the extra bedroom, 3 bedrooms, 3-bedroom units that were really undesirable and really hard to rent out. They rent very quickly. And if we talk about houses, standalone properties with a little backyard, the extra room, we're getting tremendous amount of inquiries coming through on properties, and rents are going up as opposed to small apartments that rents are going down. So people are looking for that extra bedroom in the backyard, I guess. Okay, and the last one was about buyers becoming more cautious about buying sight unseen. How do you feel about that?
Well, again, I think you're dealing with a pretty sophisticated crew, or at least very knowledgeable about what a buyer's agent is. Because if I talk to real estate agents out there, the proportion of people who were prepared to buy sight unseen and without a professional helping them at location, it was much higher. Here you've got 19% would do so without a qualified professional representing them, which is still a pretty alarming figure. It means 1 out of 5 people would happily buy sight unseen. There's a lot of danger to that. But I think what differentiates this crew is we do have a lot of banter with buyers agents sharing their knowledge on PTA, and with lots of really good free-flowing questions. And you've given us an opportunity to share with your community what we do and how we go about it, and what some of the risks are that buyers should avoid. So again, I think this is a question that would be answered differently if we went out to the street and polled people. But certainly I've heard enough horror stories about sight unseen, and I think that the fact that some of your members would do it, but with a professional helping them, is really testament to the REBAA and PTA relationship.
Yeah, so you mentioned there 19%, which is a pretty big number. And I honestly, same as you, I don't know how anybody can just look on realestate.com.au and get on the phone and buy a property in another state or another region and do it and be able to sleep at night. I don't know how they would, to be honest. And that's why we got buyers agents and to do the legwork for us if you can't go to other states, but and to other places. But yes, it is alarming for me as well. And I do hope that anybody in the group that does that, they exercise caution and do their, have an independent view. I don't know how you do that if it's not someone that you pay, but peace of mind, because you make these decisions, and then you're going to have to pay. You're going to pay for them for a long time. It's hard to get into property and very hard to get out, and easy to lose money if you make the wrong decision.
Yeah, it's not like ordering a dress on ASOS and returning it if it doesn't fit.
All right. Well, that was the last of the key takeouts. I mean, the report will have a lot more detail on those and other findings as well, and numbers that we'll share in the next year. Anything else that you want to share, Kate? Otherwise, I'll pass back to you to close off, I think.
Thank you, Chris. We do have some other findings. We circled in on things like rental eviction moratoriums and rental movement. And currently, as you and I both know, a lot of our cities and regions are undergoing a bit of a crisis in terms of a stock shortage and heightening rents. So we have touched on all of that in the white paper, and I can't wait to share it with everyone. But I'd like to wrap up and wish everyone a really safe and happy festive season. And for those of you taking a well-deserved break, enjoy every moment and look after yourselves. And next year, we'll think a little bit differently about how we approach our survey. And again, it's been wonderful to have all of your support. So Eric, Chris, Anna and Viv, thank you again.
No worries, Kate, and Merry Christmas to you, and an amazing new year, and lots of good health and prosperity and happiness to all, to you and all our members as well.
Thank you, Chris. Nicely said.